Episode 18, The Unexpected Teacher. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our A to English podcast. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me once again. Today's story is called The Unexpected Teacher. When we hear the word teacher, we usually imagine someone standing in front of a classroom. We think about schools. We think about books. We think about homework and exams. But life is different. Sometimes our greatest teachers are not found in schools. Sometimes they are people we meet by chance. Sometimes they teach us without even realizing it. Today's story is about one of those people. It happened during the summer. I had decided to spend the weekend in a small town outside the city. I wanted to relax, read a few books, and enjoy some quiet time away from the noise. Early on Saturday morning, I took a bus to the town. The journey lasted almost 2 hours. When I arrived, I immediately noticed how peaceful everything was. There were no tall buildings. There was very little traffic. People smiled at each other while walking in the streets. The air felt fresh. Birds were singing in the trees. Everything seemed slower than city life. I checked into a small hotel and left my backpack in my room. Then I decided to explore the town on foot. After walking for about 30 minutes, I found a beautiful public park. Children were playing. Families were having picnics. Some elderly people were sitting on benches and talking. Near the center of the park, I noticed an old man feeding birds. The birds were not afraid of him. They landed near his feet and calmly ate the food he offered them. I sat on a nearby bench and watched quietly. After a few minutes, the old man looked at me and smiled. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" he asked. "It certainly is," I replied. He walked toward my bench carrying a small bag of bird food. "May I sit here?" "Of course," I answered. He thanked me and sat down. For a few moments, we watched the birds together. Then he asked, "Are you visiting this town?" "Yes," I replied. "I'm here for the weekend." "What brought you here?" "I wanted a quiet place to think, read, and relax." He smiled. "That's a very good reason. My name is Thomas. My name is Ahmed. It is nice to meet you." "It's nice to meet you too." We began talking about simple things. The weather, books, travel, nature. Then he asked, "What do you do?" "I create English lessons for beginners," I answered. His eyes became brighter. "Really? That's wonderful. Helping people learn is one of the most meaningful jobs in the world." His words made me smile. I thanked him. Then I asked, "What about you? What did you do before you retired?" He laughed softly. "I wasn't a teacher. I wasn't a businessman. I wasn't a doctor. I was a gardener." I looked at him with surprise. "A gardener?" "Yes," he replied proudly. "For more than 40 years." I expected him to start talking about flowers and trees. Instead, he surprised me. "You know," he said, "people think gardening is about plants, but it isn't. It's about patience." I became curious. "What do you mean?" He pointed toward a small tree nearby. "When you plant a seed, nothing happens for many days. You water it. You protect it. You wait. Still, you see nothing. If you become impatient, you may believe that nothing is happening. But under the ground, the roots are growing. Real growth often happens where nobody can see it." I listened carefully. His words reminded me of learning English. Sometimes learners feel that they are not improving. They study every day. They practice speaking. They read books, but they still think they are making no progress. Perhaps their progress is like the roots of a tree. It is happening quietly, even if they cannot see it yet. Thomas smiled when he noticed I was thinking. Then he continued, "Many people give up too early. They stop watering the seed. They stop believing. And they never discover what could have grown." Those words stayed in my mind. For the next hour, we walked slowly through the park together. He showed me different kinds of trees. He explained how some plants needed more sunlight than others. Some grew quickly. Others needed many years to become strong. Then he smiled and said, "People are the same. Some learn quickly. Others need more time. But every person can grow if they continue learning." I realized that I was not simply talking to a gardener. I was talking to a wise man. Before leaving the park, he looked at me and asked one final question. "If you could plant one seed in your life today, what would it be?" I didn't answer immediately. It was a difficult question. Finally, I smiled and said, "I would plant the habit of learning every single day." Thomas smiled proudly. "I think that seed will grow into something wonderful." As I walked back toward my hotel, I kept thinking about our conversation. I had come to the town looking for peace. Instead, I had found a lesson I would remember for the rest of my life. But I did not know our conversation was not over yet. The next morning, I would meet Thomas again, and he would tell me a story that would completely change the way I looked at success. The next morning, I woke up very early. The sun had just begun to rise. I opened my hotel window and looked outside. The streets were still quiet. The cool morning air felt fresh. As I drank a cup of coffee, I kept thinking about my conversation with Thomas. His words about seeds and patience stayed in my mind. I decided to visit the park again before returning home. When I arrived, I immediately saw Thomas. This time, he was watering a group of young trees near the entrance. He smiled as soon as he saw me. "Good morning, Ahmed." "Good morning, Thomas. I was hoping to see you again." He laughed. I had the same thought. I walked over to help him carry a watering can. For several minutes, we worked together without speaking. The only sounds were singing birds and the gentle wind moving through the trees. Finally, Thomas looked at one of the smallest trees and asked, "Which tree do you think will become the strongest?" I looked carefully. One tree was already tall. Another had thick branches. The smallest one looked weak. "I think that tall tree," I answered. Thomas smiled. "Maybe, but not always." He gently touched the smallest tree. This little tree had survived strong winds. It survived heavy rain. It even survived a very hot summer. It grew slowly, but every challenge made its roots stronger. He looked at me and continued, "Never judge your future by your current size. Judge it by your willingness to keep growing." His words reminded me of my own English journey. When I first started learning English, I knew only a few words. I could introduce myself. I could ask simple questions, but I couldn't understand long conversations. Sometimes I felt embarrassed. Sometimes I wondered if I would ever become confident. If I had stopped during those difficult days, I would never have reached my current level. Thomas seemed to understand what I was thinking. He smiled and asked, "Have you ever wanted to quit learning English?" I laughed quietly. "Many times." "What stopped you?" I answered honestly. I remembered why I started. I wanted a better future. I wanted more opportunities. I wanted to communicate with people from different countries. He nodded. A strong reason gives people strong determination. After finishing our work, we sat on a wooden bench under a large tree. Thomas opened a small notebook that looked very old. Inside were short sentences written over many years. He handed it to me. "Read any page." I opened the notebook randomly. One sentence immediately caught my attention. "Small improvements become great achievements." I smiled. Then I turned another page. It said, "The person you become is more important than the goals you achieve." I read several more pages. Each one contained only one sentence, but every sentence carried a powerful lesson. I looked at Thomas and asked, "Did you write all of these?" "Yes," he replied. "Whenever life taught me something important, I wrote it down." I thought about my own notebook. I realized that writing ideas helped us remember them. It also helped us grow. Before leaving, Thomas gave me a blank notebook. "This is for you," he said. "I can't accept this," I replied. He smiled warmly. "One day, you'll fill these pages with lessons from your own life." I accepted the gift with gratitude. On the first page, I wrote, "Never stop planting the seeds of learning." A few hours later, it was time for me to return home. Before getting on the bus, I went back to the park one last time. Thomas was still there. We shook hands. "It was an honor meeting you," I said. "The honor was mine," he replied. Remember, knowledge grows like a tree. You cannot pull it upward. You must water it every day. Those were the last words I heard before leaving the town. During the bus ride home, I looked through the window. The fields, trees, and small houses slowly disappeared behind us. But the lessons I had learned stayed with me. That weekend changed the way I thought about success. I realized that success is not something we find. It is something we grow. Just like a tree, one habit at a time, one lesson at a time, one day at a time. Today, whenever I feel that my progress is slow, I remember Thomas and his garden. I remember the seeds hidden under the ground. I remember that real growth is often invisible before it becomes visible. That thought gives me hope. Before ending today's episode, I would like you to answer these questions in English. Who has taught you an important life lesson? What seed are you planting in your life today? What habit do you want to grow during the next year? Why is patience important when learning English? Take a few minutes to answer these questions. Do not worry about making mistakes. Every answer is another opportunity to practice. Every mistake is another lesson. Every lesson brings you one step closer to success. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode. I hope this story reminds you that wisdom can come from unexpected people. Sometimes a teacher is not found in a classroom. Sometimes a simple conversation can change the way we think forever. Remember, plant good habits, protect your dreams, be patient with your progress, and never stop learning. Keep reading, keep listening, keep speaking, keep growing. And I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.